This is the 2025 Kia Sorento Hybrid, a car made for buyers looking for a three-row SUV packed with features, efficiency, and even some luxury to boot. Kia refreshed the Sorento for the 2025 model year, so let's jump right in and see what's going on. Let's touch on the design first, where compared to the 2024 model, this 2025 looks very different. For starters, it looks much bolder and has more presence. Everything is more angled and squarish, starting out with a cool amber daytime running lights, which are flanked by vertically stacked LED headlights. The upper grille is also more pronounced, and the lower grille highlights some of the quote-unquote rugged nature of the Sorento with cosmetic skid plates. From the side profile, the Sorento has a traditional SUV shape, but some pretty rad-looking wheels that measure 19 inches and are wrapped with a 235 section tire on all four corners. Out back, traditional badging, LED taillights for this prestige trim, and another skid plate to finish it off. Now let's talk about the trim levels and configuration, because there are plenty to choose from, but the first decision you'll have to make is whether you want gas-powered, hybrid, or plug-in hybrid. Pricing starts at $32,000 for the base gas model and ranges all the way up to $48,000 for the plug-in hybrid. This one I have here today is the regular hybrid model with the top-of-the-line SX Prestige trim level and has a starting MSRP of $46,890. So the nice thing is that Kia isn't really nickel and diming you with the hybrid model, as there's really only two configurations to choose from. The base EX trim level, which comes with a bunch of standard features, front-wheel drive and can be optioned with all-wheel drive, and the fully loaded Prestige. Now let's talk hybrid. So the Sorento is equipped with a 1.6-liter turbocharged four-cylinder, which is paired with an electric motor and a battery. When combined, the gas and electric motors make a total of 227 horsepower and 258 pounds-feet of torque. Impressively, the electric motor by itself produces 59 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, which is helpful when you drive on the battery only. More to come on that later. All the power is routed through a 6-speed automatic transmission and makes its way to the pavement using a torque vectoring all-wheel drive system with a center locking differential. The suspension is riding on a McPherson strut, fixed shock, and a multi-link rear. For a three-row SUV, this thing also gets great fuel economy. Efficiency numbers come in at 34 city, 34 highway for a combined average of, you guessed it, 34. Fuel tank comes in at 17.7 gallons, which makes the 602 miles of range on a full tank extremely impressive. Now I'll explain how all the hybrid stuff works when we take this thing for a spin, but let's jump on the interior because there's a lot of nice things to cover in here. Now, a couple items right off the bat. The Sorento is a three-row SUV, and for the hybrid model, the second row comes standard with captain's chairs, which means the max occupancy is 6. Next, the interior of this example has the upgraded dust blue leather, which I think looks excellent. It makes the interior look and feel rich and luxurious. Now, coattailing off the leather, I can say that the quality of the Sorento meets and possibly even exceeds the expectations at this price point. It feels solid in here, and throughout my 1-week loan, I didn't hear any type of creaks or rattles. Now let's talk about the seat I'm sitting in. It's 14-way adjustable, heated, and ventilated. The seat is comfortable, and I have plenty of headroom and legroom to play with, so someone bigger than me can get comfortable in here as well. Now let's switch to the technology. The Refresh bought this nice widescreen panel with 2 screens built into it. The Prestige trim gets a 12.3-inch screen in front of you. The gauges are configurable, they're easy to read, and provide the right amount of information. Over to the right is another 12.3-inch touchscreen for infotainment features. This was my first exposure to Kia's infotainment system, and I gotta say I like it. It's easy to use, simple, and configurable, as it allows you to move things around. The only downside here is that there are a lot of sub-menus, so you kind of can get a little lost. But for day-to-day use, it's great. It also has the ability to run Android Auto and Apple CarPlay wirelessly. The camera system is also fantastic. There are a lot of viewing angles, and the resolution is crisp and nice to look at. There's even a camera in the rear view mirror. Next, some random things. There are 6 charging ports in the Sorento, 2 for each section of the car. There is also a wireless charger for the front passengers. There's a huge panoramic roof that has a nice opening to look out of for the front and second rows. The transmission has a rotary style shifter that contributes to the elevated luxury of the Sorento's interior. Now, one nitpicking item are the controls for the radio and air conditioning systems. Both are controlled using this screen with these 2 knobs. When I first jumped in, I turned the AC on, but then I couldn't really figure out how to turn it off. I also didn't know which knob controlled the radio. My aha moment came when I discovered this button here, which toggles the controls between the infotainment and the AC. It's just something to get used to, but not immediately noticeable and intuitive when you first jump in. Now let's cover the second and third rows, and as a reminder, the second row for the Sorento is only available with captain's chairs. You cannot get a bench style seat for the hybrid. There is a bench style seat for the third row. Each one of these chairs has a child anchor, meaning you can fit up to 4 child seats in the back of the Sorento. Now let's get back to these captain's chairs, shall we? So this does have a heated seat function, which is always a wonderful comfort feature for your backseat passengers. You can move it forward, and also it does have the ability to recline. Sitting at 5'11", I have plenty of legroom. I have a privacy shade. There are multiple charging options, which is always great. So there's a USB Type-C outlet right here on the seat. There's a 12-volt outlet and even a 115-volt outlet, meaning you can probably charge a MacBook or any type of laptop in the back seats here. Now, one unfortunate thing is there is no additional climate control zone in the back seats. So you're just gonna have to make do with what the front seats are passing to the back. Speaking about the back seats, let's jump all the way to the third row. It is very easy to get inside because of this opening here, and also these second row captain chairs basically completely get out of the way. Now, once you get in the back seats, they're not the biggest back seats I've ever sat in. I would say that they're adequate for somebody my size, again 5'11", but the headroom, my hair is basically touching the ceiling back there. So for the third row, I would say you could probably make it work, but it's probably best suited for children. So let's close it out with the trunk space. If you have all 3 rows up, it's somewhat limited, but I did go get groceries, so it'll work in that use case. Folding the third row down provides an ample amount of space for daily use and even a weekend getaway. And with all rows folded down, there's an impressive 75.5 cubic feet of space. Now let's get this thing out on the road and see how this hybrid system works. All right, now inside of the Sorento Hybrid, and before I get started, I wanted to explain the drive modes for the Sorento. So there's Eco, Snow, Sport, and Smart. So Eco is the default mode and what the car starts in. Snow is some type of off-roading mode. Sport enhances the throttle a little bit, makes it a little sharper, so the throttle pedal becomes more sensitive. And Smart is basically a combination of all 3, in that the car makes the decision on what to deploy, meaning if you're driving on snow or off-road, it might deploy the snow characteristics. If you're driving a little faster, it'll automatically deploy the sport characteristics. But I found myself to be in Eco 99% of the time. It's the mode that it starts up in, so I kind of just left it, and that's basically it. Now let's go ahead and turn this thing on. And the startup is quiet. The engine actually doesn't turn on. The gas engine doesn't turn on. Now, let's go ahead and turn the rotary knob to drive. And it takes off in Eco mode. Very, very little noise, quiet, so you can kind of sneak away. But one of the sensations you get when you are in this car, when you're driving it around, is that it's the right size. I've driven a Telluride before and some bigger SUVs. I feel like this is the right size for this car, or an SUV. It doesn't feel too big and overpowering, yet still gives you some of the SUV characteristics as you sit up high and you're kind of in this command position. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it in sport. We're going to test the acceleration first, and yes, I know that this is just a regular car, but nonetheless, we still got to do it. Hybrid mode active. Okay. So this car moves, all right? It's not gonna blow your head off with a bunch of acceleration or whatnot, but I found it to be adequate in all driving situations where you need the power. So stop and go, if you're merging onto a highway, if you're passing, all that stuff, it's more than enough power. You're not going to feel a shortage of power. Let's switch over and let me start talking to you about the hybrid and how it works. Okay, so first things first, when does it deploy, or how does it deploy the gas powered? So there's three modes. First is gas only, electric only, so meaning it only uses the battery, and a hybrid mode, a combination of those two power plants. And what I found is that there is no function to lock you into any of those modes, meaning just use the battery or just use the gas powered. Now, there is one hack, you could say, if you could call it that, into kind of manipulating the car to do certain things, and that is by using your right foot with the throttle pedal. So, case in point, I am in eco mode now, and I'm going to gently take off, and it will stay in electric mode. It will not turn on the gas power. Now, if you are using the gas power and you take your foot off of the throttle pedal, it at times will turn the gas power off and you can maintain using the battery only. So these are some of the characteristics that I've detected kind of to manipulate the how the car deploys the power plants. But ultimately, the car controls what happens, okay? As an example, if you come to a stop, same scenario that I just did earlier, if you come to a stop and your battery is like mid to halfway to maybe a little bit less, even if you drop a feather on the throttle pedal, it's going to use the gas power to get you going, because the configuration of the computer that controls what it deploys is probably set to prioritize the battery power and to make sure that it has enough battery for you to use. So ultimately, it's up to the car to deploy what type of what type of power it's going to use to get you going. Now, the second part of this hybrid equation is charging the battery. Now, there's two ways to do that. You can use the engine, so the battery will shut off. You'll only use the engine, and the car will tell you when it's doing that. There's a menu here. See, for example, now the battery is completely off, and I'm using the I'm using the gas power engine to charge the battery. And this is nice because you don't have to plug in the car, even though there's a plug-in hybrid version of this car. So this is the benefit of just it being a true hybrid system. You can use the engine to charge the battery. And the second part of this is brake regeneration. Now, if you're not familiar with brake regeneration, this is basically when it uses the kinetic energy from the brakes to charge your battery. So you take your foot off of the throttle pedal, it will use the brake energy along with the energy it's collecting from the engine to charge the internal battery for the car. To add an additional layer on top of all of that, there's the levels of brake regeneration you can play with. So you can have this completely off and it'll feel like a normal gas-powered car. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. And as you progress up through the levels, the brake regeneration feeling, meaning when you take your foot off of the gas pedal without applying any of the brake, it will automatically brake the car for you because it's collecting that energy from the brakes. Now, I found level 1 to be the most effective and the closest to a gas-powered automatic car, because this isn't technically a full EV car, even though it has EV-like capabilities. So I'm assuming people are buying this because they want it to feel like a regular gas-powered car. And level 1 kind of gives you that, along with kind of smoothing out the brake feedback that you get when you just take your foot off of the gas pedal. Now, all of this works really well. The hybrid platform or the hybrid system works excellent. It's very efficient. So I've driven this 187 miles, and this is a mix of city and highway driving, and I've been able to get 35.9 mpgs. So very, very efficient. This is better than advertised from the EPA 34, 34, 34, as I was saying earlier. So extremely efficient. And one of the compliments I can also give it is that the seamlessness in which it turns the electric motor on and off, same thing goes for the gas power, is seamless. So for example, the most abrupt can be when you're just riding on gas power and the electric motor when you're riding on the electric motor and the gas power turns on. That can kind of be abrupt if not configured properly, and it could kind of cause like this jolt, but it's very seamless and smooth in this car. Now that I'm on the highway, I do want to demonstrate the stop and go capabilities of this car. So it does have the cruise control and lane keep assist. So my hands are off the steering wheel. I can set the speed up to, right now let's just do the speed limit 65, and my hands are off the wheel. It will change lanes for you. I have noticed that you do have to kind of keep your hand on the wheel for a second, and it just completed a lane change without me doing it. I do have to put my hands on the wheel ever so often to tell the car that, hey, I'm still here and alert. But I did find the lane keep assist and the stop and go capabilities of this car are strong and work pretty well. Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on, let me turn all of this off, is the overall comfort and suspension of this car. I would say that it's as expected. It's not the most comfortable SUV that I've driven. It's also not the least comfortable SUV I've driven. I think it's adequate and meets the expectation for this price point, and ultimately I don't have any complaints about the way this thing rides. Now, overall, I'm really, really impressed with this car in terms of its driving capabilities and driving dynamics. For what you're going to use it for its efficiency and just hauling around your family, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful driving experience and really hits the mark for what you're expecting in this type of car. So that's pretty much all I've got. Now let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. So that's the Kia Sorento Hybrid. Now this is the real deal. Anyone looking for a 3-row SUV with killer gas mileage, excellent technology, and a wonderful list of standard features should absolutely look into one of these things. I think it has everything that you could possibly want and need for an excellent daily driver and family hauler. So that's all I've got. If you've got any questions, please make sure you leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram @DriveSteady. If you're interested in some of my other reviews, here's some links for you to watch. A thank you to Kia for giving me access to this Sorento Hybrid. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Until next time, drive steady.